Good afternoon out there, shopkeepers and do-it-yourselfers. Today we're working on the driver's side of a 2019 Chevy Duramax. It was making a whistling noise. It started just when you'd go into decel with the exhaust brake on, and kind of sounded like a hamster wheel. And I thought it was fluttering through the exhaust brake. But as it turned out, it was the rear bottom stud had broken on the exhaust manifold. And so I got this apart, already got it apart. What I did to get to it, obviously jacked it up, took the left front wheel off, and took the 119 screws out of the wheel well, and took it out, or off, and zoom out. That gave me plenty of access here. And I took the steering shaft off. It wasn't very hard. It was I think it was a 10mm bolt that went in here. The hex head is 10mm. I think the actual bolt size is like 8mm, what would convert to about a 5/16. And then I took that bolt out that went through. The nut on the back side of that went onto that was this, call it a tang nut, regular nut with a piece of metal on it, so you don't have to hold a wrench on it, but it went through there, 15mm hex head. And so this slips up on the steering column shaft, and you see I got it just dangling right there. The steering column is locked. Don't disconnect this and leave your steering column unlocked and where it might spin, because the clock spring and the steering column, you'll destroy it. You don't want to do that. I did put a mark right here, but you can't hardly see it. Yellow mark, but I remembered that the label went up and the bolt went through that way, and it threads into the bottom of that yoke collar. When I got it out, I was able to go right through there where my light is going with my air ratchet and a swivel socket and get that bolt out. And then I went underneath and went up through the cross member and hit right here with a long, well, I used this crow's foot screwdriver pry bar and knocked that up off the steering column shaft. And you can see that it has got a flat spot, so this is oriented in only one way. It'll only go on one way, either or. But, you know, like that way or that way. But we know it goes that way. So when I go to put this back together, I'll go ahead and put a little oil here and put a little oil on that and slide that up on there and then pull it down and put it back on the steering gear. But that come out of there relatively easy. Then I took the top cover, the insulator cover, off the top of the valve cover, because this bolt right here, this retainer strap on the dipstick tube, is hidden. I believe that was a 13mm head bolt, and then there's a 15 down here on the bottom. You kind of need to get that dipstick tube movable. And then I disconnected the turbo inlet pipe, the charge air cooler inlet pipe. I disconnected so I could get more room, and I took all the studs out. They all came out, even the one that was broke. But these take I think it's a 6 or a 7 outside Torx. I was able to get all of those out. I was going to replace them, but I'm up against the weekend and I could only get one. and only one was broken. And since the one that was broken is the one back here, and I saw another video, a guy was replacing the passenger side, and the rear bottom stud broke on it too. So I'm going to be sure and put the new stud back there in the rear on the bottom. I don't know that it has any significance, but that's the way it was. And you can see I've got all of the glow plugs out, disconnected. I didn't have to take those out to get the manifold off, but after having taken the manifold off, I decided I'd go ahead and take them out and replace them, because I got 230,000 miles on this truck, and you know, I'll take the other side apart and replace them here at my next convenience. But anyway, so I've got those out. I did test them; they all tested good, but I'm going to go ahead and replace them. And I took a little die grinder with a Scotch pad on it and cleaned the head surfaces off. And all of these bolts that go into this turbo pipe, there's 3 bolts, and they go in from the backside up into the manifold. 2 of them snapped off, and only 1 of them came out. So this is the stud that was broken, and here is the broken stud. It came out pretty easy, no problem. I didn't even have to grind on it or anything. I put a nut on it, and then spun another nut on there, and crammed them together, and then put a wrench on the inside nut, and spun that stud out. It come out pretty decent. And I thought I had seen up in there, hiding inside of the heat shield, the nut, the part of the stud, and the nut, and the spacer that goes in there. This would be the spacer. And when I got it apart, I didn't see it anywhere, so maybe it had fallen out in the last week or so, and it's laying on the road somewhere. And I was only able to get one, but I only needed one. I don't see any reason to replace the other 7, just because, I mean, it's just a spacer. Anyway, all 4, well, not all 4, 3, you got 4 bolts that hold the heat shield on. Let's see. There's your heat shield. And 4 of them bolts, or 3 of those bolts, this is the only one that managed to come out. 3 of them broke, and this one is daggum near to break, so I got new bolts put in there. That's no big deal, but I wanted to put it back on there. You can see them broke off in the manifold, and wholesale price on this manifold was only $85. And I tried to get these studs out. Man, they won't come out. Or, I'm sorry, those are not studs, those are bolts. And like I say, 2 of them broke off, and this is the only original one. And this bolt, I don't know what it's made of. It is, it's non-magnetic. It is non-magnetic. See, it won't pick it up. But here is another bolt that's almost identical to it. See, those are magnetic, but that one is not. That stud is. Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use one stud in the back to help me get this thing together. I'm going to put this stud, this broken exhaust manifold stud, in there because it's plenty long. I'm going to go ahead and put that in there and put the new gasket on there. I got new gaskets put on there. Your original gasket is kind of riveted or whatever to the exhaust pipe. Let's see, I think that goes on this way. Anyway, so we'll put that on. The new bolts for the heat shield, and I got one new stud for the, there's my new stud for the exhaust, and fortunately the other 7 didn't break, and this one's got probably a 5mm hex head, whereas the others, the originals, like I say, they have a Torx socket or a Torx head. That's a E7. Yeah, E7. That's what fits these. And this would be, that takes a 5mm. There you go. That looks like an S though, but that's a 5mm. That seal for the turbo pipe goes on one way, and it's not necessarily that it's directional, but you got to figure out which way it goes and go ahead and get it oriented. I'm leaving it like that when I go to put it on. Then all I have to do is kind of rotate it up to line the hole up to get the next 2 bolts in. And I'll put a nut up here. So I'll go, and I'm going to leave the studs out of the head so I can get this up in there, because it is a little bit tight. Those studs are a little bit longer than what they need to be. If they were about, maybe 3/16 of an inch shorter, that would be better. You'd have more room to get the manifold away from the studs and up out of there. But it did come out with the studs in it, but it was tight. This original multi-layer steel gasket that goes back here on the manifold was riveted on. So I ground the heads of the rivets off because I'm replacing that. And I started to say that because I couldn't get these bolts out, I could have pressed on a little harder, a little further, and managed to get them out. But I tried to weld a nut on it, but like I say, I don't know what kind of bolt that is, but it's not a regular non-ferrous or whatever. I'm not a metals guy. But anyway, I tried heating it, and buddy, this one, when it was still on the vehicle, I tried heating it. You can see there, and for safety, so I wouldn't catch anything on fire, I stuck this piece of metal in there as a heat shield, so I didn't damage any wiring harness or anything. But I could not get that out. It snapped off. And with these 3 bolts broke off in there, and that gasket having been leaking, I didn't know if this manifold would be warped. So for the money, wholesale price on it was only $85. Well, that's less than an hour of labor. So to me, it was a no-brainer. I just went ahead and got a new one. Anyway, I've got the new manifold set up in there. I put it in through the top, or the front end, up that way, and then nursed it in there, and then come up over the wiring harness there. You can't see what I'm doing. And then come down kind of beside the pipe, and then brought the front in between the head and the dipstick. And you kind of got to be careful that you don't cut that wire for your glow plug. So then we'll line it up on that top. There we go. So that is ready to go. Then get the new gasket, and I believe it goes that way. There we go. So we'll ease that up there and get a couple of the bolts started. And I just went ahead and started that one right there. It's real easy to get to it. And I can get my hand up through here in front of the control arm and finagle the front of the manifold. So we'll go through and like these studs, these exhaust studs, they have like a shoulder here, or it's not quite a shoulder. It is, but it ain't. So it threads into the head, just this part right here. And you know, you don't have to torque them into the head. But we'll get all them in there, just hand tight, and then we'll tighten them down with the E7. I don't know what E stands for, but E stands for eat. Yeah, it's time to eat. That's what it stands for. Anyway, we'll get these in there, and I'm going to put the new one in the back on the bottom. That's the one that broke. Okay, I've got better than half of them in there and started. I'll tell you, I did not take this heat shield off of the turbo up pipe. I left it on. I was able to work around it. I just took my handy dandy little crow's foot pry bar and caught on the head of this top bolt for the flange and bent that heat shield down just a tad bit so I could get a socket on there. And because of the angle and the distance, I could not go from underneath and come up this way with the extension and a swivel and be able to get onto that bolt. I had to work entirely from right here with a wrench. But then it broke, and I was glad that it finally broke, because that bolt was kind of a bitch. But the bottom two, this outside bolt and the one toward the inside, I was able to get from underneath. But like I say, one of them came out and the other one broke. So we've got that seated up in there. I'm going to go ahead and end the video here because I'm going to go eat. But we'll get these tightened up. I put the nut with the spacer already on there. I'll take a socket and I'll run that nut in just a little bit so I can get onto that Torx head and run that stud in, and then I'll tighten the nut down after I've got all of the studs in there. And I will go probably like the middle one, and then the opposite one on the bottom to kind of center that manifold, make sure it's seated good, and then we'll just kind of go around and around till we get it all in there good and snug. And I think they say like 89 inch-pounds or something. I don't even know what that means. I ain't used a torque wrench in so long. You know, just German torque specs, Gudentight. You know, the studs are going into aluminum, so you don't want to crank them down with your 3/4 inch ratchet. And then the nut that goes on it, you know, daggum, it's like a 8mm or a 5/16 for us SAE guys, old guys. You know, daggum it, put down your 1/2 inch impact and get out your 12-inch ratchet and just snug them up good. And make sure that your threads are clean for your portholes for your glow plugs. So when you thread in, you don't want to mangle them threads. And the nuts that held the wires on, they're small 8mm or 5/16, and there's no other hardware that holds it. There's no lock washer or star washer or nothing like that. And the wires will dangle Obviously, you know which one goes where. There's 1, 2, 3, and 4 back there. Make sure you get them all 4 put on, and don't over torque them. Those are very. You can see the hole in the nut. That's a very small stud sticking out. You don't want to break them off. I haven't got the new glow plugs yet. I'll get them later today somewhere. But you can test them. If you've got resistance or continuity from here to here, see there's an insulator in there, and it goes through the carbon pile, or I'm not sure what the hell that is. That gets hotter than nail, hotter than nail. That's HOTTER apostrophe NELL. Hotter nail. Gets hotter nail down here on that end. But if you put your ohm meter on that lead and touch here, you might have to kind of scrub back and forth. You'll have somewhere like 1.8 ohms, which I had on all 4. But I'm, like I say, 230,000 miles. I'm going to go ahead and replace them, and then on the passenger side, I'll get to them here in the next couple weeks or so, maybe, whenever. But there's the carnage, and these are the new bolts for the heat shield, and these are spare bolts. Those go back in the bin because, or no, these go, yeah, those are for the flange. This one, I might go ahead and use it since it's that, I don't know what the hell you call it. Anyway, maybe it's titanium. I scrubbed it on a wire wheel. It says TY. It's the same size as these, but this is magnetic or non-magnetic, and those are. You have to tell me what the difference is, because I don't know. Anyways, guys, time-wise, I had that manifold off in probably an hour and a half, and maybe it might take the average do-it-yourselfer. It might take him a couple of 2 or 3 hours to get it off, but anyway, most of it's done from right here in the fender well, and like I say, as a reminder, you know, you take that steering column off. Do not let that steering wheel turn, because that clock spring in the steering wheel for your steering wheel controls and your airbag, you'll break it, and you'll wish you hadn't, because those are probably $400 or $500, if not more. Anyways, guys, thanks for watching. Share, like, and subscribe. Comment if you will. I appreciate it. Have a good day.